Hi, Booktubes. This is Jackie from Jackie's Literary Corner, and this is actually my second video of the day. My first video was an update. I filmed that this morning, although I have not uploaded it yet as I'm filming this one, but once I am done filming this one, I will probably upload it, so you'll see it later. But because of the snowstorm that's coming along through the East Coast up north, I thought I would do some books, go to the bookstore. Although I did do some online book shopping the other day because I had been dying to go get something from Thrift Books, and I saw that there was only one left. So for both the book, for at least two of the books that were on my wish list. So let me grab them. And then today, like I said, we might be stuck in the house for a few days this weekend. So I thought I would go book shopping. Go to the Outpost bookshop and get some books. And once again, I broke my own rule for myself, and got 4 books instead of 3 books. I mean, it's only one more, but still, it means a little bit more money has been spent. So, okay, so here are the books. I got 4 books. I did donate, though. I mean, I always try to make sure I have books to donate. So the first one is actually a book that I had once before, and it's the actual same edition of it. And that is Marie Antoinette by Antonia Fraser. Like I said, I had this book once before, but at the time I kind of lost interest over time, and I had been meaning to get this, and this is not the only Antonia Fraser book that I have now. I think it's not here, but I think I have another book about another female historical figure. I'm trying to. It might be Mary Queen of Scots. I might have her book on her. And then I have another one. And what I appreciate, this actually has colored images, because a lot of times the paperbacks, because this would take a lot of would be expensive to get the colored images in there. So they don't, a lot of times when a nonfiction becomes a paperback, it doesn't have the colored images when it has pictures in here. So I'm actually really pleased that it actually has the paintings in full color in the book. So I'm giving this book another shot. And I don't have to really, it's like the title says it's all. It's about Marie Antoinette. This is the title. That's the author's name. I was pointing to the author's name. And in case you don't, she was married to Louis the 14th, I think. And she was an Austrian princess. And, it was during the time of the, maybe is it the 16th? Well, either way, it was during the time of the Revolution. And she was famously known for saying, "Let them eat cake," when the people were talking about they were starving, and then sadly she loses her head. And I have been listening to The Rest is History, their series of episodes on the French Revolution, and I'm working backwards actually, because I've listened to season 3, and then I realized that they had episodes before that, so way before that, so I started listening to season 2 from the beginning, and then there's season 1, and I think they said that they only had 1 episode for season 1 that dealt with the French Revolution. I mean, they might have actually, I don't know if it was 1 or 2 episodes, but so, as soon as I saw that was on my mind, and I was like, you know what, let me get this book again. So, and then we have, okay, this is a book that I've attempted to do a buddy read with someone who follows me on Goodreads, and I think they also are subscribed to my channel. So if you are watching this, yes, I'm giving this book another shot. especially now because I know what about this that is like iffy. This is the whole what the Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Disney cartoon, and then there's all the. This is one of the ones that's been adapted multiple times. Um, is based off of. But the funny thing is, the Disney cartoon is only that the Hunchback storyline is not even the main. It's really an all about Paris, the city itself. It's an homage to the city, and so it's not. There's no like. So the Hunchback is not a huge part of the story. I mean, he's in there and he's a part of it. He is a significant, but he's not like the main thing like the Disney movie implies. And it's really funny that because that this title was not the original French title. I don't think somehow though it got translated when it came to America. It got translated to this. So I guess the Disney movie put emphasis on the Hunchback. I mean I don't know for sure, but that's what I'm interpreting that but I already know like how there's a lot of description about Paris and the architecture and like Hugo is known for spending a lot of time describing places, describing things that people are like that a lot of modern people are like, we don't care. Like basically Les Miserables spends a lot of time describing the sewer system of France. It's like Paris, and it's like we don't want to hear about that because it's really gross, and people just don't care. But which it doesn't say it. It's just, but I mean, it does say it's a revised translation. And it doesn't say it's an abridged version. Although I still don't think, even though I don't think the Hunchback of Notre Dame is that long. At least not compared to Les Miserables. I mean, that one's huge. That's in the 1,000-page mark. And I'm still deciding if I want to make that one my next big book read, or I also am thinking about War and Peace. There's also the Walt Disney by Neil Gabler novel that I gotta finish. That's the oldest, probably the next oldest book on my shelf. Like, I mean, granted, you could technically count the Count of Monte Cristo because the copy I have now was not my original copy, and my original copy came from where I used to live. But then I bought a new copy because that one was kind of, I mean, it wasn't even that badly damaged, but it was still like, I mean, I'm sure there were a lot of people that probably would have appreciated that version of it, that edition, and loved it, and it probably seemed kind of snobby of me because it was still readable, it was still in great condition, it was mostly in good condition. It was like, yeah, it was a little like, you could tell it was well read. And I'm not saying, now I don't mean as a person, I don't crack my spines, because I do crack them. But I think I also, because I saw the Penguin Black Spine edition, I was being greedy and wanted that edition. So I ended up buying that one and donating my original copy. Because, I mean, it wasn't even a hardback or mass market. It was just a, regular size Oxford World Classics edition. Like, with the ones with the purple ribbon on it. But, well, the one I had of this one, I don't even remember what edition it was when I first had my first copy of this book. But, yeah, I tried to do a buddy read with someone, and I just was not, I was kind of, at the time, I just wasn't into it. I hate to say it, but at the time, I'm going to say the B word, bored at the time. And I know, and I'm sure a lot of people were saying, why are you buying this now? Which, to be fair, if I had just got this book, I would have only spent $4 on it. So, and still, compared to what it would cost at like a Books A Million in Barnes & Noble, I mean, even like on thrift books, which even that's a risk because even though, yeah, it's thrifted books, they're cheap. And, the lower the level you go down in whichever level where it's a good condition, acceptable condition, just or very, really, very good and new, almost new and all that. Like, no matter which level, if you go down to like acceptable, then you're more of a, it's going to be a little bit, probably a little bit damaged, but not to the point where you can't read it and it's still like together. But it still, it still costs a little bit of money. And unless you get more than one book, unless you get multiple books, you're still going to be paying for like the shipping tax and all that kind of stuff, unless you get a certain amount, and they will let you know, buy another book this at this price, then you'll get free shipping. But even then, the books will, in both Thrift Books and at Outpost Bookshop, the books will disappear unless you buy them. Luckily, there were 2 copies of Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Dover Classics edition, and then this one. And I decided to get this one because this is an edition I've had before. I mean, I've actually had Dover editions, but I kind of like these better. So, but anyway, I know people, like, as I was about to say, I know people are thinking, why would you do that? But if you were bored by it last time, but I think I'm a little bit older now. I think I was in my 20s at the time, and now I'm in my 30s, and I know that, maybe that doesn't really make a difference, but I think it can, and I also know what I'm getting into with this book, and I just keep feeling like I need to give it another shot. So that's what I'm doing. And again, not only if I just got this book, it would only be $4. So that's Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. I mean, that is an idea, though. Do a French theme reading. Like reading France set books. Because I don't know French, so I couldn't read in French. But books set in France. Okay, so the next one is actually one that was on my thrift books list. Because I've decided that I want to read some fiction books, historical fiction books about Rome and set in Rome instead of reading nonfiction, and maybe then I'll come back to more nonfiction on Rome later in a few years. But so this was an author that I think it was recommended to me on Thrift Books. They recommended it, or I saw it on Goodreads, and I was like, I saw this book, I looked at it, and I was like, oh, a book on historical fiction set in Rome. And then I said, well, wait a second, was that on my Thrift Books? And it turns out it was. So, in the good news, I can delete that from my list. And this comes with a glossary too, which is really helpful, actually. And plus, the image that I saw on Thrift Books, it was a mass market version, and I don't like mass markets as much anymore. I mean, because they're small and the papers are thin, and it's kind of cheaply made. So it's like, I'm going to stick with regular size paperbacks. So, I got this. This is The First Man in Rome. Let me read the back. When the world cowered before the legions of Rome, 2 extraordinary men dreamed of personal glory: the military genius and wealthy rural I can never say that word, rural upstart Marius and Sulla, penniless and debauched, but of aristocratic birth. Men of exceptional vision, courage, cunning, and ruthless ambition. Separately, they faced the insurmountable opposition of powerful, vindictive foes. Yet allied, they could answer the treachery of rivals, lovers, enemy generals, and senatorial vipers with intricate and merciless machinations of their own, to achieve in the end of a bloody and splendid foretold destiny. were the most coveted honor the Republic could bestow. Yeah, so that sounded really cool and exciting. And like I said, it might be easier for me to get into fiction, historical fiction set in Rome, than reading nonfiction about Rome. Although, I liked Mary Beard. She was great, made it very accessible and easy. Fortunately, Tom Holland, I may like listening to him on a podcast, but reading his book on the Rubicon was a little bit challenging. I mean, it wasn't a hard read, but it was just very dense and a lot of information that I didn't remember. Yep, so this will be fun. This is gonna be fun. And right now, I'm already excited about these books and wanting to read them now. Okay, before I get to the last one, let me read the backs of all these other two. Okay, so the Marie Antoinette biography. France's iconic queen, Marie Antoinette, wrongly accused of uttering the infamous "let them eat cake," was alternately revered and reviled during her lifetime. For a century since, she has been the object of debate, speculation, and the fascination so often accorded to illustrious figures in history. Married in mere girlhood, this essentially light-hearted child was thrust onto the royal stage and commanded by the circumstances to play a significant role in European history. Antonio Fraser's lavish and engaging portrait excites compassion and regard for all aspects of the Queen, immersing the reader not only in the coming of age of graceful women, but in the culture of an unparalleled time and place. And then Hunchback of Notre Dame, set in the medieval Paris, Victor Hugo's powerful historical romance, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, has resonated in succeeding generations ever since its publication in 1837. It tells the story of the beautiful gypsy Esmeralda, condemned as a witch by the tormented Archdeacon Claude Frollo, who lusts after her. Quasimodo, the deformed bell ringer of Notre Dame Cathedral, having fallen in love with the kind-hearted Esmeralda, tries to save her by hiding her in the cathedral's tower. When a crowd of Parisian peasants, misunderstanding Quasimodo's motives, attacks the church and attempt to liberate her, the story ends in tragedy. Okay, now let's start with the last book. So, this is Kate Moss, and I keep hearing about this author, and I keep seeing her books at the Outpost. And I want to say, did I buy one of her books already? Did I re-buy one of her books? I don't know. I'll have to check. And it looks like it's one of those multi-timeline stories. So we have first part is France, 1562. As the wars of religion begins to take hold, a courageous Catholic woman and a passionate Huguenot believer find themselves united in the possession of a priceless relic and set upon a quest to uncover a long-buried secret hidden in the haunting Chateau de Beauvert in the foothills of the Pyrenees. Sorry, I don't know. I never studied French, so I don't know how to pronounce this. Wish my sister was here because she did. Although, one time I asked her to translate something for me, and it had been years since she had, practiced her French and, been around the French and everything. That it's, so she ended up getting it wrong, actually. Carcassonne. 19-year-old Mayu Jobert receives an anonymous letter at her father's bookshop sealed with a distinctive family crest. It contains just 5 words. She knows that you live. But before Manon can decipher the mysterious message, a chance encounter with a young Huguenot convert, Piet Redon, changes her destiny forever. Piet has a dangerous mission of his own, and he will need Manon's help if he is to get out of La City alive. Toulouse. As a religious divide... Oh, maybe it's not. Maybe it all takes place in the same timeline. I thought it was different timelines, but no, it might actually be in the same timeline. As a religious divide deepens and many and old friends become enemies, Manon and Piet Both find themselves trapped in Toulouse, facing new dangers as sectarian tensions ignite the city, and the battle lines are drawn in blood and the conspiracy darkens further. Bringing 16th century Languedoc vividly to life, The Burning Chambers is a gripping story of love and betrayal, mysterious mysteries and secrets, war and adventure, conspiracies, and divided loyalties. So yeah, I could do a French themed, which maybe I'll do that in February instead. Although I still gotta read. There's other books that I want to read. But anyway, like there's some books from England that I like to read. Maybe I could do England and France. But anyway, so I'm excited to read this. I've heard, a lot about, I've heard other people mention Kate Moss on BookTube, and I've heard, people, I've seen her books multiple times at the bookshop and thought about buying them, so I finally bought one. And I want to say, I don't know if maybe I attempted to buy one and didn't before, so this might be my second one, but I don't know. We will see. But so that is my book haul. I'm excited to read all these. Like I said, I didn't do any reading while I was at the bookshop because, as I told my mom when she picked me up, that I spend more time browsing than I do actually sitting down and reading. Especially because this bookshop it's not like organized the way like a Barnes & Noble or Books A Million. And it's also a small shop anyway, so you just have mystery, fiction is most of it, and then you have a small section with classics, and then you have the vault. There's a biography shelf where the classics used to be against the wall, and then there's the vault where they keep that's where all the regular nonfiction books go that aren't biographies. And I've looked around everywhere, mostly everywhere. I even gone into the mysteries, since mysteries, like thrillers and mysteries aren't, it depends on the mysteries. That is, like, obviously, Kate Morden does a lot of her books are mysteries, and the Rossetti Letter was a mystery, and I want to read the next book, the sequel to that, which I did look for that. So when I first got there, I actually looked for some of my other, like, Warlock Legend, the fourth book in the Poldark series. I did look for that. I also looked for The Kingmaker's Daughter, which is one of the books in the Philippa Gregory's Plantagenet series. And then I did try to look for some World War I book nonfiction, and the only World War I, there were only like 3 nonfictions. One was a 2-volume thing. One of those that it looked like kind of like maybe was an encyclopedia type book or something. And then there was another nonfiction book on World War I. So they only had 3 there, but it was a hardback, and I try not to buy hardbacks because it still costs a little bit more than a paperback. It's still $1 more, and that means I would have to lessen all these. I couldn't buy all those books, and then I wouldn't get change back. So, I know I didn't get that one, but I'm going to look into that one again and look that one over some more. And I wrote down I didn't type a note in my phone that were a list of books that I might consider that are potential books for the future. But like I said, with this bookshop, books can disappear. A book can be there one minute and then the next. Sometimes they can be there. Like there was one book today that I had seen before and considered buying, and it was still there today. Hunchback of Notre Dame, the Dover Thrift edition of Hunchback was still there, but then they also had another one there. So you never know. But oftentimes, like, they'll be there for multiple visits that I've made, and sometimes they'll disappear during the and then So that's, but that's how it is with, Steve Donahue constantly says on his videos when he does his book Brattle visits, he always says that don't go in there with the purpose to find a particular book, because most likely it won't be there. Not always, sometimes it is there, but he didn't say that, but either way, he said don't go there with an intention to buy a certain book, to find a certain book, because there's no guarantee that it's going to be there. And it's the same thing with, with my used bookstore. There's no guarantee. Sometimes they have been there several times. I've gone to visit, and I'm, part of me is like tempted to get it because, oh, maybe this is a sign, the fact that it's still there. But then oftentimes, not always. Like I said, I finally bought Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's not always there. Sometimes that's just a coincidence, and sometimes it is. It could potentially be a sign, or at least I interpret it as such. But anyway, I'm gonna go now, and I hope you guys are enjoying your reading. And have you read any of the books I just showed you? Have you seen them before? Like, I'm sure most people are probably familiar with The Hunchback of Notre Dame, because since that's a classic, you've probably at least heard of it. And I would love to know, and if you I already know that it's that a lot of people find Hunchback of Notre Dame boring, and he spends a lot of time, praising the architecture, and I know that there's a lot of people complain about there's no one likable in the book, and like Phoebus is a douchebag, and but so I know all that stuff, but I still want to read it. I still want to attempt to read it again. All right, now I'm gonna actually go for real. All right, bye.